Hello and welcome back to Per Connotation Points Video Snark. We're picking up where we left off last week with the plan by Qwen Salsbury. Nope, I still haven't figured out how to pronounce her name. Before we jump in, I'd like to say that none of the chapters are actually called Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and so on. Each of them are entitled something along the lines of Day of Employment and then increasing numbers the further into the story that we get. Going back to my earlier comment, this kind of behavior is not healthy and MC should probably think about finding a new job. In the first chapter, it is day 359. Like in the prologue, we're given a bizarre list that indicates that it's 7 a.m. and that MC appears to be at a bakery. Our still unnamed MC is apparently people watching, or more rather, looking at the bottom of some man at the bakery. Not gonna fault the girl for looking. And 20 feet in front of me is the equivalent of a 100-car pileup wrapped in a pair of pinstripe pants. I'm not quite sure if this is supposed to be a compliment or not, but MC is not there to check out people's bottoms, but rather appears to be on a morning date, except that, as the reader can tell by her roving eye, she's clearly a little less than pleased with her date. MC watches as the man she dubs as Mr. Pinstripe sits down to his own breakfast, which she then describes in aching detail for some reason. There is a time and place for everything, and the time for this would have been when the readers actually have some incentive to care about why this random lady is describing a stranger's breakfast to us. MC is finally given a name, which is Emma. By her date as he asks her how she knows about the bakery. Emma's opinion of her unnamed date sinks lower as he calls her friend who owns the bakery place a, and I quote, girl. He also apparently flings spinach around. Emma continues to watch Mr. Pinstripe as he picks up in order to go. Her date mentions something about a job, but Emma is only half listening and gives him a half-hearted answer, which he calls her out on. She says that she's distracted by something at work and watches as Mr. Pinstripe and his party leave. Emma wraps up her date by intentionally calling him Matt instead of Mark. She makes some excuse and runs from the restaurant. As she's going, she thinks to herself, I also know that I would rather go get a high-velocity mammogram than have another experience of being regaled with tales of his new partnership at Crusty, Dull, and Dusty LLC, so fumbling his name seems less confrontational than telling him as much. Wow. Okay then. She does know that you are allowed to say no to a date, right? If you aren't interested in somebody, just tell them no. It seems a lot better than intentionally stringing them along. Then a time skip to 7:57 a.m. Emma gets into an elevator at work, which she describes as being packed full of people. And just when I'm wondering why anybody would care about this stupid elevator, Mr. Pinstripe shows up. And he's apparently some head honcho or important enough at the company that somebody gets off so that he wouldn't have to wait for the next elevator. Which would probably be way less crowded, but that seems to be besides the point right now. Somebody also addresses him as Mr. Cannon, which, if Emma knew his name this entire time, why did she start calling him Mr. Pinstripe in the bakery? I'm honestly not quite sure what to make of that, except not wanting to reveal his name right away, which just raises further questions about the writing. Emma watches him fiddle with his phone and says that he smells like cinnamon rolls from the bakery. And then we have a horrible writing sin, a time skip that only just spans a few seconds. We go all the way from 7:57 to, wait for it, 7:59. Wow. Emma and Mr. Cannon are apparently alone on the elevator now. He's oblivious to her, but he's all that she can think about. Wintergreen, pumpkin spice and coffee, sunshine. Even though, not even a page earlier, she said that he smelt so strongly of cinnamon rolls. Emma inches closer to him in a desperate bid to get his attention, and I have to say one thing, this story has barely gotten started, and I'm already filled with so much secondhand embarrassment from Emma's behavior, to the point where I want to advise Mr. Cannon to file a restraining order against her. I'm not going to deny that I haven't done some strange things when I had a crush on somebody, but there's having a crush on somebody, and then there's acting like a stalker within just a few pages of the start of a book. Emma goes on to inwardly explain that she'd planned to be on the elevator alone with Mr. Cannon. she's also having a good hair day and that she took care to make sure that she looked nice. Plus eyeshadow put on in front of bathroom rather than rearview mirror. No judging. Text and drive is a big no-no, but to commute and multitask is an aged and revered tradition which must be upheld. You don't get points for encouraging people to do their makeup while driving, Salsbury. In fact, I think that you get negative points. This is dangerous. People die because of distracting driving. But despite Emma's best efforts, Mr. Cannon has better things to do than to pay attention to some lady who apparently hasn't even been working at the company for a year now. The elevator stops and he gets off, seemingly unaware of the heartbreak he's leaving behind him. 11:05 a.m. Location, in my box like a good Schrodinger's kitty cat. Why? Also, going back to how it keeps saying that she should probably find a new job. One of Emma's coworkers approaches her about an office bet. How long will this new assistant last? Emma looks up from her cubicle to the lady in question and describes her as being a fairly straightforward office type. However, after talking about placing a 20 into the she'll stay square, the coworker says that the assistant will be leaving a meeting to get the food orders from the same bakery as that morning, which is apparently a horrible thing to do according to the coworkers, a fireable offense that's probably right up there with calling the boss's mother a hamster. However, rather than finding fault in such a horrible person, Emma continues to swoon over Alaric Cannon. I'm pretty sure that this man could urinate on somebody and Emma would continue to praise his actions. Emma continues on by saying that she's never once actually spoken to Alaric, but she has spent the past year studying him, and despite his nasty behavior, all can be forgiven simply because he's hot. Book. Can we not? He's the guy you wish Jennifer Aniston would be with just to get back at Brad. Nothing quite like an awkward dated reference. Scientists should extract his cells and use them in electromagnetic experiments, those tubes that can destroy the planet if the particles align improperly. So, quick question. What in the name of sanity am I reading? Emma then spends no less than half a page telling us how hot that Alaric is, without ever once describing a physical trait of his. The man could be purple for all anybody knows, but it's excusable so long as he's hot in the eyes of Emma. This leads to Emma explaining that everybody else is obsessed with him, although she seems to be the only one who wants to get into his pants. There appears to be a revolving door of assistants, and as such, the office constantly has a betting pool going on how long that each of them would last. But despite Emma thinking nonstop about how handsome that Alaric is, she knows that if he were to yell at her like he constantly yells at, well, everybody, she'd be over her crush on him in 2 seconds flat. Which, girl, have you considered seeing a therapist? However, in the same breath, Emma goes on to say that she's still annoyed over the non-incident in the elevator. I know his favorite coffee, its substitute in the proportions of cream and sweetener. I know he prefers oat to wheat and never, ever rye. There's something he favors about conference room C. I suspect it's the projection equipment. For all his perfectionism, he manages to drip on his tie fairly often. He never sends red roses. No one gets a chance to interrupt him twice. I know that I hadn't really jumped into the story when I said Alaric should probably get a restraining order, but yikes. There is not enough to properly explain how creepy that seeing that passage is. Emma excuses knowing this is her simply wanting to win the office pools, but I'm not quite sure how his bread preference factors into his revolving door of assistance. The coworker finally breaks Emma from her musing about Alaric, and all I can picture is Emma disassociating for like 5 minutes solid while they try to get to her attention. They ask her again how long that the new assistant will last. Emma says that she wants to help the girl, but another coworker scoffs over the idea of Emma intentionally rigging the pool. Emma goes over to the assistant's desk and offers to get the bakery items for the meeting, but the lady is rude and quickly brushes off Emma's offer of help. The assistant then calls Emma out on how she wouldn't stop staring at Alaric, and, she's not wrong about that, that's for sure, but she seems to think that Emma is after the assistant's job, which Emma thinks that she would never ever take it in a million years. Emma goes back to her coworkers and puts the 20 down that the assistant will be out on the street by 2 that afternoon. And with that, the chapter comes to a close. And there's an awful lot to unpack in this chapter, and it's literally just the first chapter. I feel like this is only just going to get a lot worse.